Welcome to VNfiniti,
the podcast where we talk
and you listen.
We're your hosts, Ashley
and Tori.
We are back with season 2.
Season 2!
We have a something you probably heard and people have talked about a lot, but I wanted to touch on it as it relates to how we move forward in our Black heritage during Black History Month. So, generational wealth. It's been beat with a bat by everybody, but we still find ourselves in kind of this loop of things when it comes to Black people being Black in America, being African American, being a person of color, however you would like to label yourself. Because I'm not caught up on that today. But what can we have this gap that it's almost like we're on a hamster wheel.
It's huge. It's huge. It's huge. It's huge gap.
So there are a couple of things that have been proposed with this new administration that will help, or seems to portray or to put it out there that it will help with closing that generational
that gap
curse.
Well, it's not just the generational gap, but that gap period, right? So you talk about the generational gap, and you talk about the wealth gap between races, right? Okay.
Between races. Minimum wage at $15 an hour.
Reparations.
Canceling student loans. I'm going to put it out there. Without putting the right things in place, there's still going to be that gap. Agree or disagree?
Agreed. Right? In terms of what we do with it.
Yeah.
It's a foundational thing. And it's a huge thing because we've been stripped of our wealth for a long time. It's not like we didn't start out after slavery, post-slavery, like with our businesses, right? Like Wall Street's everywhere, right? But they came through and they decimated them. They robbed us because they knew that we were excelling, right? They knew of our talent. They knew of our abilities. They knew all these things, right? So then they rob us of it. And then they create these systems that are designed to keep us out, like redlining in real estate, right?
Right.
And the subprime loans, right?
Right.
Right. So all these systems that they put in place to keep us down, not to mention that we make maybe 60 cents to the dollar.
I believe it
right?
is. Mm-hmm.
Right. So you have all of these
barriers,
walls, barriers, right? To keep us
from growing,
like increasing our wealth, right? Insurance.
Insurance wasn't a thing that was offered to Black people. And when it was, it was offered because they knew we were dying at higher rates.
And why? Because we were disadvantaged, right? Healthcare, right? The food we were eating.
Right. It was similar to
all of it.
Some of the methods that they used during the Holocaust, where they were insuring victims, knowing that they wouldn't, like whole families wouldn't be able to collect on those, or insuring property, knowing that whole families wouldn't be able to cash in on those. But even with
by design.
But you know how people that will challenge you and tell you that even with these barriers, there's still Black millionaires. There's still Black billionaires. So why don't Black people pull themselves up by the bootstraps?
Yeah, we should pull ourselves up by our bootstraps.
Even when it comes to having those things in place.
Yeah.
And so I want to talk about some of those things that we could use as part of those bootstraps, those imaginary bootstraps. And how that information, which is the biggest key, in my opinion, to the whole generational wealth conversation.
The question is, how do we close that wealth gap, right?
Yeah.
So essentially what we have to do is fast forward, right? We have to speed up, find a means of closing a wealth gap that they said is 30, 40, 50 years wide, right? It's got to be more than that. Let's just go ahead and call it like since the beginning of the states, right? So we can start with us in terms of like education, because there's certainly things that we can do but we also have to face the fact that, you know, there are some things that are happening that we're not going to be able to control, right? So like some things that we can do from my standpoint, like we can educate our children, right? Go ahead and start having early childhood financial literacy, right? Teaching them to save, teaching them what an asset is versus a liability. Put away a little bit, you know, every time you get something, you know, rainy days. Like we can have those conversations.
Financial literacy is all good. It can be taught, it can be handed down. Those are some things that are big misses in our communities, but also mindsets. So that's my thing. I feel like being broke is a mindset. Being broke is a mindset that you can pass down to your children through generations. Some people become complacent. Some people don't even know what to do with it. So like having funds or having money and them not knowing what to do with the funds to help them pull.
Girl, you can set them right off on a path of destruction real quick. Exactly. Those are those instances where people win the lottery and they end up in way more debt than they ever would have been in if they were they never won the lottery, right?
That could be part of the mindset.
It's a foundational thing because you're not going to get it in school. The point in this, right? So we have to remember that the harder we work, the harder they're going to work against us, because there are people who profit off of other people being in debt, right? And if we don't know that and we don't understand that, then that's not something that we're going to conquer. We're not even going to understand that we're pawns. We're the target. We're being used, you know? That's why people buy debts. That's why people buy those subprime loans, because they know that people might default on the loan. It's likely they're going to default on the loan because we're going to set this interest rate so high that once, you know, your 5-year arm is up, it balloons and then you can't afford it. Like, people have to know that they are targets. And if you don't get that education in school, you're not going to know. There's so much that we would have to educate our people on in order to move us ahead. Not being an employee. And if you can, I mean, not everyone could be an entrepreneur. Not everyone should even be an entrepreneur. Don't get me wrong. But to close that gap is just, it's gonna be something serious. You know what I mean?
Here's my thing with it. This is where my thought process. There's a lot of information out there. So it's not about people not knowing. So that's no longer a thing. So that's why I was saying it's no longer having knowledge is no longer a generational barrier. Like there's no reason why you should not have knowledge. There are groups. Free groups on Facebook that you can drop into that drop gems and drop knowledge. And people are on Facebook all the time. There are YouTubes, there are TikToks, there are so many different things and so much information that is available. So to me, generational wealth is not an issue of we don't have the knowledge. To me, generational wealth has everything to do with, like I said, with the mindset. Is now the mindset of you tie a horse to a chair, and after a while that horse will still be tied to that chair when it has every means,
all the access. Yeah, so you have all this access, you have a wealth of knowledge,
right? But
yet you're still a prisoner.
Exactly. And don't get me wrong, all the barriers that you mentioned are there. To my point on the conversation and on the knowledge side of it, you have Reddit. The people of Reddit got together. These were mostly poor. These were mostly people of color or African American. Some of them got hip to it. We're going to put it out there. They got together and they basically did a flash mob. The opposite of, they actually put it to the man, the opposite of a boycott, basically, where they ran up GameStop stock. And it caused hedge funds to pretty much lose millions and millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And as a come up, that was one of the things that there was knowledge there. There were people that got the knowledge and applied it and came up. But the system itself blocked them because by design, at some point, they cut the system off. They were like,
Yeah.
The game. It's acting erratic. We're going to shut this down. You can no longer trade the stock on most of the markets, particularly Robin stock.
Yep.
stepped in and they were the first to cut it off. Where from an SEC standpoint, that's their job and not Robin Stock job. Or Robin Hood. Robin Stock.
Yeah, but that's the whole thing when you talk about these systems that are put in place to put us at a disadvantage. Like who's at the head of the SEC right now? Until we're able to flip the administration, which it should be.
But even with that, that happens all the time. So that's practice. It's not something that happened with, and they didn't stop it themselves. The actual trading company stopped.
Yeah.
So the SEC didn't stop it, which they should have.
Right. Reddick stopped it.
Robin stopped.
Robin stopped. Yeah.
Robin stopped it. But it's a normal practice of the SEC to stop stock from being traded when it's acting erratic until they can investigate to make sure it's not insider trading or any other issues going on there. So it again, like you said, it is one of those barriers where we try to get ahead and we don't get ahead. So my question is, like, what do we do? What do we do at this point? So we have all the knowledge. So let's say we have all the knowledge that's there. What is it from a generational wealth standpoint are we missing? And I think another thing that people aren't taking into consideration is generational wealth also includes generational health. We are at a disadvantage health-wise because we typically don't have access to good health care. We typically
I'm just saying,
I know it's systemic. I know it's an issue there, but we don't have help. But what can we do ourselves? And what we can do is treat our bodies better. We don't have access to healthy foods because we have a lot of our communities are without food desert or are food deserts. But what can we do ourselves? That's my thing. I get it. We all get it. There's systems put in place, but what can we do? And I mean, we community gardens. Hey, we have fresh food and vegetables in our own communities.
And that right there is going to help with the grocery bill.
Yeah, it's going to help with the grocery bill. It's going to help with your health. And that way your health is getting better. Drinking more water. Although we've seen what happened in Flint.
I know, but the thing about it is I feel like each generation is smarter with that. I feel like each generation, make those decisions that, I saw this happen to my family. I'm not gonna do this. I feel like we do those things.
And that allows more money in your pocket. Like you're not out here having to pay for high blood pressure medication in your 40s. Right. You know what I mean?
But just like that, I feel like, just like, so like just that, right? That one, that as well, right? But like in addition to that, like when you say that poor mindset, we feel like the more we have, the richer we are. But then it's just the opposite because we're spending a lot of money on things, right? And then we're mismanaging our time because we're managing those things when we could be using our time in a more productive manner. And then we're buying less things so we can keep that money in our pocket. But that's the whole thing when you talk about passing it down from generation. Like I can make that decision, like, you know what, my mom buys people buy a whole lot of stuff, whatever. And I'm just like, because first of all, my mom's retired. She can do whatever she wants to do. But I'm just saying, but when my mom speaks, she'll tell you that when she was raised on less, right? So the next thing, that trend was, I was raised on less. Now that I have more money, I can go and spend more money, right? And so and then when we pass that down, like that can be a continuous thing because we all want to fight to get up out and we want to create this image. And so even though I don't have a house, right? I may not have a house, but I'm driving this such and such, right? And so I think those things when you're talking about like, I have a poor mentality, but I look rich. That's what Black people want to do. I'm not rich, but I can make myself look rich, right? So like it would be to me, I'm not going to say that everyone, should be a homeowner or that's the only way to like build wealth, because it's absolutely not, right? You have to own your home. You have to take care of your home. You have to build equity in your home. Like, there are many things, right?
Community too, because there are a lot of people that own homes but can't take care of them, and then we have gentrification
and can't pay their taxes.
Yes, can't pay the taxes.
Okay.
Can't keep up the home, so the neighborhood starts to get run down, and then
that's what they say, right? And that's how our neighborhoods end up at a disadvantage, right? Well, first of all, because when we move in, you have white flight, right? So then once the white flight happens, then the jobs go, and once the jobs go, then the area is run down. So then we're fighting against that, and then we have our own mom and pop businesses, and then they bring Walmart in. Okay, but I know we're trying to figure out how to build it.
Yeah. Like I said,
I'm on the opposition end, so you got to tell us how. Because I'm on this end where I have to highlight these things that are happening. Like, I know we know that they're happening, but we have to bring those things in and then talk about how to combat those things as well.
And that's what I want to talk about, is like, how do we combat those things? Because we know they're happening. We bring them up all the time. We see them all the time. We live them all the time. But how can we combat them? Like, we can't dwell. We can't dwell in that space, because if we're dwelling in that space, it always becomes an excuse as to why it's not happening. And I want to overcome that. Like, we can talk about that. So
I also think it's about awareness. I also want to make people aware of things. You know what I mean? So like, while we're combating these things and we're talking about how to avoid these things, you have to bring these things up in order to make it a thing that this is a problem, and then this is how we conquer this problem. This is how we solve this problem. This is how we combat this problem.
The information is there. We already covered that. It's there. The information.
I know.
The awareness
I think
is not that. It's not the fact that there's people know what's happening. People see it happening every day. People are aware. But what are we doing about it?
I think it's your circle that might be aware. So like, so if you're telling me that if you went to have a seminar, right? Because you've had seminars about home buying seminars and financial literacy and stuff like that, right? So you're telling me that these people don't have questions? You're telling me like that's why people come to the seminars, because you're educating the people on what's happening, right? So I know you're saying that there's a wealth of knowledge out there, but I'm also saying that it depends on where people are getting their knowledge from. We already know that it's a whole bunch of knowledge out there, but people actually have to know how to cipher through it and know what applies to them. You know what I mean? And I'm not sure that people really know how to do that. So I'm in
those seminars. So when we're in those seminars, yes, it's a wealth of knowledge, but it all comes back to, like, from a home buyer seminar or from anything that I have been involved in, it all comes back to, what do I do about it? What do I do about my credit score? What do I do about my home or my parents' home? Like, I'm in several groups that talk about real estate. Because of course, that's been my business, or trying to build upon my business in that sense. And there's like, my parents have a home, and right now the repairs on it are XYZ. What can I do about that? Because what's happening is we have generations that have built wealth. We have generations that have built wealth that are ready to pass it along. But when it gets to the new generation, it also comes with debt. Because a lot of people will look at a house, and this is maybe the knowledge that they need. A lot of people will look at a house as an asset, and it until that house is paid off,
not always, right?
It's a liability. And even after it's paid off, if you're not bringing in, or if it's not generating income, it's still a liability, because you have to keep it.
And if you're not managing the property well,
exactly,
the upkeep
that's
gonna, because the deterioration is the quickest way for you to lose that property, right? If you're not keeping it up.
And so, like, having that knowledge is, it's around. People are aware of it. Like, okay, my family's home, but what can I do about it? That's the question. That's the $1 million question. What can people do about it? So what you can do about it is, you can, if the home is paid off, you can take out a home equity loan, fix the house up, and if you're renting it out, you can recoup that money from the rental income on that house.
As well as your taxes, right? Because you can,
as well as your taxes, because most home equity loans can be tax deductible, depending upon what you're using them for. So it's things like that people, again, the knowledge that's there, the knowledge.
What are some more things?
Some more things. A lot of people look at life insurance.
Yes.
Life insurance. Let's talk about life insurance. Life insurance is not for funeral people. It's not. Life insurance.
I mean, because it's a big deal, right? Because
we have a lot of GoFundMes out there. Don't get me wrong. Life insurance is very helpful for your family to help them grieve you. Honest, that's nice. It's very nice. But life insurance is to help supplement income for a person that's no longer there.
That you lost, right?
Like you have two-person income. Right. That income is gone. And now you have to worry about paying off that house that is in that person's name, or paying off that car that's in that person's name. It is not for a funeral. Put them in a box and burn that bitch up. I'm sorry, but that's my plan. You not going to visit me after a certain amount of years.
I can't. I just died. Don't burn me up.
Burn me up. Burn me
I'm not
up.
messing with you, but it's true. It's true. It's going to cost you a lot less. It's going to cost you a lot less, right?
Put a picture
to see that individual off. Yes. You can still have a nice funeral, but I'm going to tell you, those burial services, it's gonna cost you. It's gonna cost you. The plot's gonna cost you. The head is gonna cost you. The coffin's gonna cost you. All this stuff is gonna cost you. You better rent. You better rent it out. You better rent that coffin and then return it when you done.
Don't rent it.
Yeah, it's a real thing.
You better go to Costco. I don't even think Costco. You better go to Staples, Home Depot.
Are we gonna start building boxes?
Girl, you no. Print a picture. And put that thing
I'm not messing with you.
On the easel.
We're not even gonna have a box.
We're gonna have a box.
Funeral right here. That's a beautiful picture, because you don't even want to remember them like that. You don't want to remember them cold.
And don't buy that expensive urn either. You keep your $200 and you sprinkle them ashes.
Look at here now. If we're saving $20,000 on a funeral, we can have a $200 urn.
No, ma'am. What for?
Jeez.
You're going to have to dust it. And one day somebody going to knock it off, and then my whole body going to be sprinkled all on somebody's floor, and you're going to have to vacuum it up. No.
Are you
pour ashes on a beach somewhere.
Stop it.
Ashes to ashes. Remit me back to the earth. Remit me back to the earth, please. And take that life insurance. I don't have any kids, but take that life insurance and you supplement my income. You put it towards something that's actually going to
pay off that house,
to generate
pay off
for my family.
Get you a scholarship. You're right. And many things.
Yeah, it could do many things besides
buy more properties, because you know what, we tend to spend a whole lot of money on campus housing. Don't do it. Go ahead on and buy you a little condo, little townhome. Get you something, girl, in them 6 years or 8 years that you get your doctorate. You go ahead and pay off that house, right?
You gotta pay it off. Get you some roommates and have them paying your bills for you.
Help them, and then rent it out when you're done.
Yes, either rent it out, or once it has gained in equity.
Yeah, pull that out.
Cash that out.
Pay off the rest of your little student loan issues, little debts and stuff, and then put that towards, your new home or another home. You know what I mean? Or while you at it, instead of buying a home, buy you a duplex. You know what I'm saying? Rent that out to your roomies. Let your roomies. So absolutely. We got to figure out ways to put it in motion. Another thing, right? So I have a 10-year-old and a 5-year-old, and we have a business, another business, Body by Envy, right? And we also have Addie and Liv's boutique, and Heroes, and Row by Hero, his jewelry. Here I am putting my little ads in. But my point in that is, like, there are tax deductible ways of which you can pay your children, I think, as young, I don't know, maybe 6 months, I don't know, but children, very young children, like you can pay them a salary because they can model your jewelry,
And
or they can model your outfits, or they can do
year.
some paperwork around the house. I mean, but well, not necessarily around the house, but around the business. But I do run a home-based business. But the point in me saying that is you can go ahead on and start paying your children a salary. They can go ahead on and start putting that money into an IRA, and that money can go ahead on and start compounding. And by the time your children are starting college or 30 years old, they can already be a thousandaire, right? Like 100,000aire, right? They can already be in their 5 or 6 figures. So that's another way. You know, I don't think that people are aware of that, but you can pay your children a salary. Your children can work for you. You can put that on your taxes in terms of like your business. So those are little jewels too.
And put some things in place for when you're out of here. Like after they burn me up, you know, put some things in place, because a lot of people go through this whole ordeal with taxes. So transferring of wealth, for instance, has been a big issue with us regarding taxes.
What is that? Because that was part of the tax thing, the estate tax.
So do some estate planning. It's really big. Like estate planning. You have parents that may own their home, and you're trying to figure out what to do with their home. And when they're getting certain income, it's very hard to get help or have those assets and those things transferred later in life. So do some estate planning, do some financial planning while they're living. Get those things going from a generational standpoint.
Girl, listen, let's talk about this land thing too.
The last thing you need is nothing being in place
when your family is deceased, right? That's a huge thing, because the state will come in and take. Well, they're claiming they're gonna come in and mediate. Yep. They'll come in and take your stuff, right? Your land. Do not let the government claim your land. This is a thing that has been an issue for us since the beginning of time. And when you talk about there being a wealth of knowledge out there, people need to know that the state will come in and take your shit if you do not have a plan in place, okay? So all the siblings gonna come around to the table and they gonna argue, no, mama left me. No, mama left me in charge. No, daddy left me in charge. No, they left me the house. No, they left me this. Listen here. You need to know before they go, because they will take all your shit. Like, don't put yourself in that situation. You understand what I'm saying? Like, they're like, people lose like acres and acres and acres of land because it wasn't written up right.
It's something that's happened in our family on my father's side.
No, it's something that happens to Black people.
Oh, of course.
Because we don't know. They steal from us. They rob us blind. And then they put, I'm clapping. I'm sorry, audience. They rob us blind, and they put these things in place to disadvantage us. And we fall into the trap because we want to fight over the guns, and we want to fight over the coins, and we want to fight over the jewelry. Cut it out. Mama would have left it to me. Stop it.
And we talked about the houses, and we talked about gentrification, and we talked about making sure that you keep your home up. There are a lot of nonprofits out there that will help you or your family members, you know, do a little research.
This is good stuff.
Do a little research. There are a lot of nonprofits that are out there that you can apply for grants to have your home updated, to have like roof repaired, truly put your family in a better place to keep the value of the home up. I will definitely link them below. But I mean, again, like, I think overall it comes back to education. The biggest miss for us is just being educated and educating ourselves, because nobody's going to do it for you. Nobody's going to do it for you. And even if you want to go back to all of the things that we're talking about and how that information has been passed down, it's not being passed down.
Girl, you know, the thing, you're right. It's not being passed down, and it's not transparent, because we're not even having conversations about finances and wealth, and we're not having these conversations within the homes. You know what I mean? And if you're not getting it in school, because they don't want you to get it in school, because like I said, they capitalize off your ignorance. So when you don't know, it's costing somebody. It's costing you, but you're making somebody else rich.
One of the things that people fail to realize is the ability to read is so valuable. We rely on people to just give us information. Just as we're having this conversation now, we rely so heavily on people to give us this type of information when all of this information has been hidden in books for years, for decades, for centuries. And the
Girl,
reason
it's in
why
there
is
because
because
that's how the Black Wall Street started.
we as people weren't allowed to read. So let's hide it in a book. So we hide it in a book and people aren't reading. And now you have generations later where reading is not fundamental. Like, it's not popular, it's not a thing. We're scrolling, we're looking. And of course, like I said, there's ample amount of information that's available. If you're not fully getting those nuggets from a book, you are fully paying somebody for that information. It started.
But you also paying somebody because you don't have that information. And that costs.
Yeah,
like when you don't know how to take care of your body and you don't know how to be healthy and you don't know how to, like, that costs you money. It costs you your health.
You don't have it. So how are you going to be able to pass it down? So it all comes back to the whole, how are you being proactive at the knowledge side of things? And whether you're talking about your body and taking care of your body and how that keeps expenses down, and how you living longer to be able to generate this wealth is helpful for your family, how that breaks curses in other ways as well. Having both parents around long enough to get you through college, long enough to provide for you. That's not only breaking the generational wealth barriers, but that's also breaking curses. And we're not fully taking advantage of the things that we can do as people. And that's what I was coming back to from the whole mindset standpoint. Like, we have to think, okay, yes, these barriers are set up for us. They're out here for us. They're going to keep putting them in place.
Like, we have to acknowledge that. I'm not saying that we can't be
out of this GameStop thing. Listen, I don't know what it is.
We can make decisions all day long, right? We can make positive decisions. We can make the right decisions all day long. But, like, let's be real, right? Like, we still may come up a little short. Like, if we put you up against the next, right? Mm-hmm. Not you and I, but you and Sue. Sue gonna get about 30 cents, 40 cents more than you. When Sue's health insurance is gonna be different from yours, because on your paperwork it's gonna have a B, right? On hers it's gonna have AA or B, and hers is gonna have a W, or I don't know, like whatever else can be affected, right? And the other part to it is, like, maybe it's not gonna be an issue in terms of like where you buy your house, but when you go to get that loan gonna say it's gonna have a B on it. Like, and hers gonna have a W on it. It's like you have to consider how those things.
Yes, in considering it, do you think those should be removed from applications?
Yeah.
You do?
Well, I don't know.
Because I see pros and cons. So we remove.
I do too, right? So that's why we have a census, right?
Yeah, you remove race from applications, and when you do that.
And you hire me based on my merit and not the skin color.
Are they? Is there a way to track that? Is there a way to reach back and say, oh, I didn't even see that she was a color, because...
Is it? She was a color. She's a color? She's a color. Right. So so when you talk about generational wealth, am I going to get the job?
Yeah. Are you? I mean, and what are you getting the job based off of? I mean, it's
I might get the job because my name is Victoria. So this is the thing. Yes, these are definitely things that are valuable, right? We need to know these things. This information needs to be passed down. We need to know about insurance. We need to know about estate planning. We need to know about managing our health. Like, those are some of the biggest, like, disparities within our community, for sure, right? Housing is huge, right?
I have a question for you.
Sure.
Do you think a broke mind can be passed down from generation to generation?
Like, how would you not pass down a broke mind? If you passing down everything, yes. I mean, if this is how you're raising people, that was your point in the beginning of changing your mind, like not being a prisoner within your mind. Like, yes, it's clearly, yes, absolutely. Like we hand these things down. Like that whole conversation that you have with yourself. I can't afford that. I would stop and I can't afford that. I mean, it's a thing to say, like, but you need to change your terminology. Yes, but change your terminology. Like that's something I would like to have. I'll work harder for it. It may not be something I can have right now, but I can have it. And eventually,
like some people's family habits can pass down a broke mindset. Like you can be stuck in a paycheck to paycheck mindset. Like you've seen everybody struggle from paycheck to paycheck, and it was all about if name brand this, name brand that, or it could be all about the habits that were brought into that household to where it's
very
okay
much
to struggle. So now
because if I watch my parents going to, what do you call those check places where people go if you like the
loan advances?
Yeah, so like if I watch my family go and get loan advances, right? Because every week or every 2 weeks or whatever, the check, it doesn't quite stretch, you know what I mean? So if I'm watching my family go and do that, but no one's communicating with me the fees that come along with that, right? So you're spending this extra money every month, like you're paying more money, and you're becoming broker because now you have more and more fees that they tack on, but you're just trying to make it stretch.
Or never opening a bank account. So a lot of people, that's something that Black people did not trust banks at one point in time. So some families, some people have never really had a bank.
Girl, we store that money up under that mattress, girl.
We have for how long? And a lot of it has come from the Great Depression. So when we were allowed,
when she had that money in the back of the TV,
a girl that was soul food.
Yeah.
So when you have people that grew up in the Great Depression era, and it was the first time, and to be honest, that was one of the first times that Black people were even allowed to have a
and they bailed out the banks.
And people started keeping money under their mattress because they didn't trust the banks anymore because of course the banks took their money, or they weren't allowed to withdraw because we were in a depression. And
took their money. They stole their money.
Grandma cashes her whole check. Mama sees grandma cash her whole check. So now mama cashes her whole check and there's no bank account. And nobody's putting anything away. And
that means the money isn't growing. It's not compounding. You know what I mean?
Like sitting under somebody's mattress.
No CDs.
Somebody going in there taking $5 every 5 weeks. So you got embezzlement happening right in the household, and then you pass that along from a habit standpoint, and then you have families now that they're cashing their whole checks. They don't have, or if they have trusted a card or anything, it's because they have to use it now because that's the way of the world. So now these preloaded cards that have those same fees that you mentioned, that's keeping them.
Oh my God, no, they don't.
Yeah.
Do they?
Prepaid cards, preloaded cards, you get feed for putting money on the card. You get feed for ATM transactions. Girl. You get feed if you use it at certain locations. There's fees left and right. There's a monthly
fee.
Bless
their hearts. See
there's
what I'm saying?
Fee. Yep.
They're robbing you blind. They're robbing you blind. And who gonna tell them otherwise? This is why folk need to know that. This is why folk need to hear this. I had no idea that they had cards like that. And that just, you know what? And why not? Why, if I'm trying to capitalize off the poor, why wouldn't I make it convenient? You don't have to drive around and find one of these little salary advance places. I'm gonna give you a card. The money gonna be there on the 3rd. Like, come on. Like, this is terrible. And this is why consumer protection programs are important. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying the masses are, lack the intelligence, but there's something more that we're not getting control of. You know what I mean? There's something more that you and I may not even know of because we're not necessarily in that. Now, I'm not saying that I'm not a part of the lower middle class. Don't get me wrong. but I'm not in poverty. You know what I mean? But and then because poverty is to a mindset, right? But in that same space,
too.
Yes, but in that same space, like there's got to be something more that we have to get our hands on in order to feed the others. Like I'm lost. I'm at a loss. I had no idea that there were paycheck cards that were just straight robbing you right then and there. And so for me, to have siblings, the first thing I'm going to do is tell them to stay away from things like that. But I didn't even know. So how do I even advise someone if I don't even know that exists? Like, I know I have a little Cash App card, but they're not charging me like that. And I don't even need the Cash App card because I have bank accounts, right?
Yep.
But that's need to know stuff. Like that's a thing that I didn't even know that. And that's the predatory behavior that's out there. And they're just like, they're preying on us. And we don't even know it. We don't even know that we're being preyed upon.
And let's talk about predatory lending. That's another thing that is passed down.
That's what we were talking about, the subprime loans.
Subprime loans is the least. Let me tell you one of the biggest predatory lenders.
Educate us.
Rent to own.
Dang it.
Washing machine.
Oh, appliances? Like,
appliances.
Oh my God. Give me a break.
That is one of the
What is happening with the rent to own
that is
furniture and appliances stores and stuff? What's happening?
Girl, that's one of the biggest places that prey on poor communities.
But when you say that as in a space like it's a lot of people that are relying on these types of businesses. Like,
that's what
I need to get into it. I need to figure out. I need to go into their neighborhood, the broke down poor Kentuckys and the broke down poor West Virginia. I'm gonna go over there and get me a rent to own place.
I mean, you go in to purchase a washing machine and dryer.
I was about to say, can we just buy it? No, we can't, can we?
You can't afford it. You can afford a used one, but the one you have is used and it broke after.
And this is an issue of credit.
Yes.
This is an issue of credit, of being educated in your
no credit. And you have no credit line. So because you've never used your credit, or because you've had bad credit because you've been put in positions where you had to go to them payday loans or the paycheck cycle or any of that.
Do those payday loans and those things, do they end up on your credit?
If you don't pay them, yes. If you're late. Yes.
And then of course, so then once you do that, and then you get those rent to own appliances, and then you don't pay those, and they ding your credit. And then the payday loans, they normally ask for direct deposit information. So if you don't have a bank account.
If you are lucky enough to have a bank account, if you have not paid them, they will snatch their money out of your account. So your rent money gone.
Are you serious? They have access to just come and snatch money out your bank account?
Some of them, that's their requirement to do the loan.
Oh my God, that should be illegal.
It should be. But if you give them access to it.
Because you're doing an auto or something?
And like I said, a lot of times it's required because it is a payday loan. Some of them require you to have
I like to automate my bills because I can save money. You're right. Like, this is terrible. This is awful. Oh my God, goodness. Like, I really feel like this is a topic that we can certainly circle back around. And I feel like this is absolutely the year, Ashley, because like this is the year for liberation. Like not that any other year isn't, right? But I feel like this is the year that I pray. Because we started 2020 with the visions, like 2020 gonna be crazy. But I really feel like I'm coming into 2021 like with in a more grounded space. Like I'm not, my head isn't in the clouds, and I realize that there's a lot of work that needs to be done, right? And so I really feel like this is the year for like to help put these things in place. Like it's important to me to get into community gardens. It's important to me to get into those communities that are food insecure, right? Like you spoke on real estate, but like feeding people, like conquering my community's hunger is important to me. And as well as like us having making better decisions in terms of your health, because like your food feeds you. What you put in your body depends on how your body performs. And I want to be in that position to educate people on that.
And how that ties back to their wealth situation. It keeps them from spending money at the grocery store, but it also keeps them healthy. And it ties that to keeping them here longer. It ties that to keeping medical
educating their children,
having healthy babies, so you are not spending money on other health related issues.
Food and housing, right?
Yes, food and housing. We were both talking about that. Those are the basics, but it's crazy how it keeps coming back to that. And one last point I want to point out as well for generational wealth. We talked about the finances. We talked about little gems here and there. We talked about what can we do versus being stuck in the mindset of the system. How can we fight the system? We talked about that as well. We need to start passing down trades. I have a friend that does things that they do
repairs
around
and sorts.
Repairs,
Sure.
electronics, electrical work.
I was about to say my father was a lineman. You know what I mean? So he dealt with. He's retired now.
How do you pass along those trades for it to become a income generator? And it doesn't have to be your job. It don't have to be your.
You start early.
It don't have to be a job. It don't have to be.
It could be a hustle. I'm with it, right? So like, I make jewelry and I teach my children the same thing, right? But not only that, I bought my oldest a mannequin head this year because she likes to play with hair, but they like to play with makeup. So I built them a vanity. You know what? Excel in that, because when you get to college, somebody want their makeup done. Somebody want their hair done. And I'm just talking about a basic level, because these are ways for you to make a living. These are your streams of income, right? Because we got to increase our streams of income, right? Before we get to our residual income. But in the meantime, we gotta, so absolutely. Because it doesn't end there. Yes, we can hand it down within our family, but if we don't have those skills within our family, we also need those community programs that are teaching those skills, those trade skills, the carpentry, the plumbing, the blacksmiths, all those things. Like, we need those. Get somebody, get your sis to do your nails. Don't go give them your money. Keep your money in your community. It needs to circulate within your community. It doesn't need to hit outside of our community. It needs to stay right here at home. While we're in this space, right? This right here is critical. This is important right here, right? This very episode that we're having, because we have to start helping our neighbors. We cannot be the ones to once we get in, we're gonna close the door so the next one can't come in. We have to be willing to pull the next one up and pull them in. Spread the wealth, spread the knowledge. I was reading something today, and I think maybe it was on Twitter, but I read something on Twitter that if you have someone who is not willing to bring you in for fear of you surpassing them or taking their place or outshining you, then that's not a real friend. If I'm not going to bring you in because I fear your performance, I fear you outshining me, that's an issue. Especially if I know you are talented and you're gifted and you have this that you can contribute, and you may even be better in this position, but I'm not even going to speak to you about it because you might outshine me. Nah. That's not how we come up. Yeah. That's not how we do this. You know what I'm saying? And we talked about that before, because don't get me wrong now, we look out for our people, right? It's a lie. It's one of those misconceptions that they put out there, that we don't look out for our own people. And that's a lie. Even that crabs in a barrel, that metaphor itself is a lie, because crabs in a barrel actually pull themselves out.
Not just that, crabs are not supposed to be in a barrel at all anyway.
They're not supposed to be trapped. But even if they are, they reach back. They do reach back. They don't fight each other. And they say they pulling them back in. No, they're pulling them out. They're trying to pull you out. We're pulling them out. Pull us up. You know what I'm saying? Each one reach one. Don't leave your neighbor. Don't leave your loved one. Don't leave your siblings. Don't leave your friends. This is a community effort. We have to pull all of us. We have to work together. So this is the thing. This is where we are. We're working on values. This is the episode of closing the wealth gap. sharing generational wealth, educating our children on generational wealth, our loved ones, our family members, like the communities, all that.
All that.
All that. All that.
Sharing is caring.
Sharing is caring.
Yeah.
It's caring. But at any point, we hope that that this was beneficial to you all. We hope that you receive this and that you can use this and that you apply this and, you know, hit us up and let us know if you want to hear more about this. Leave it in the comment section if you enjoyed this. If you have any extra tips that you want to drop, any jewels, if you want to promote your business, if you want to tell the people where to go, put it in our comment section. Tell us, please.
And as always, thank you for listening to the podcast where we talk
and you listen.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.